Sarah's trip to South Africa was canceled, so today we're doing something even better, making hard lemonade.
Yeah, we are.
Hard lemonade is a fermented product, okay? You take, essentially, lemon juice with water and sugar, which is lemonade, ferment it, and then you get about 6% ABV. We're also going to carbonate it. So it's gonna be a sparkling hard lemonade. It's gonna be delicious. Okay, so if you Google like a hard lemonade, it's called which is really gross. You won't
I bet Mike's Hard would come up first.
Shut up.
Okay,
Get out of here.
I'm done.
You won't find that name in the title of this video or the thumbnail or any of it. We're not going to talk about it again because it's gross. But you can also go on to .com to get the official recipe. Ours deviates crucially from that recipe in 2 ways. The first, we're not using white table sugar as the primary fermentable sugar. We're using honey. So this is going to be a little more summery and tropical. And what's the second way, Sarah?
Because we have lavender and blueberries in it.
Yes. We're going to be using blueberries and we're going to be using lavender. So it's going to taste really super good.
Do you know what fermentation is?
Fermentation, in this case, alcoholic fermentation, happens when yeast eat sugar and produce alcohol and carbon dioxide gas.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Chemistry.
So what we are going to do is we're going to add sugar to our lemon juice. We're going to add yeast to it, and the yeast will produce the alcohol. So the very first thing you want to do is sanitize all of your equipment. Get the sanitizer. Why do we sanitize, Sarah?
We like things clean.
It kills all the microorganisms and germies and buggies that might ruin your brew. So you want to kill them. That's what you use sanitizer for.
Death to germs.
That's right. Once you've done that, you get your stuff, and here we are. So we're going to add a gallon of water to our fermenter. So we're using a 1.5 gallon fermenter from Northern Brewer. We're making a gallon of hard lemonade, but we need to have space for the fruit that we're going to use that takes up space, and we want a gallon of end product. So we need to start with a little more than a gallon. Do you get the concept, Sarah?
I do.
Oh, good.
I understand.
Sarah's just pouring in the water, and we're going to use the whole thing.
Ooh.
So we're going to, in the end, need to use 20 ounces of pure lemon juice, all right? The lemon juice that we're using isn't like freshly squeezed. It comes in the green bottles, and it has preservatives in it. So we're going to have to do a few things to overcome that issue. Preservatives inhibit yeast, among other things. We want to use 20 ounces of lemon juice. 12 ounces right now, and then 8 more ounces 4 days into fermentation. It's important to do it in 2 staggered additions because if you put all the lemon juice in once, all the acidity from the lemon juice will inhibit and maybe even kill the yeast. And we don't
want that.
No. Oh, that's milliliters. Damn it.
You fouled us. Your face.
Oh, that was too much. I forgot how much I had said. All right, I'm just gonna pour a little. Wow, I'm gonna pour out just a little bit, get it back to 12, and then boom, we're going in. Cool. We did it. The third difference between the official Skeeter P recipe and my recipe is that we are not going to be using diammonium phosphate as the yeast nutrient. We're gonna be using Go-Ferm and Fermade O, okay? Because we're using honey in this, it's kind of like a mead, which is wine made from honey. So we're gonna be using mead-based nutrient protocols. We wanna prepare our yeast. Like I said, we're using Go-Ferm and Fermade O. So we wanna add 1 teaspoon of Go-Ferm today, and with some water, and then half a packet of our yeast. It's gonna allow the yeast to rehydrate, get those micronutrients from the nutrients and stuff, and then we're gonna pour it in. And then tomorrow, after 24 hours, you're gonna add 1 teaspoon of Fermade O. Okay, so it's a little bit staggered there as well. I trust that you can do this. I believe in you.
I don't.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I do.
We're going to be adding enough honey so that we get about 6% alcohol. Now, winemakers and mead makers and cider makers use hydrometers, okay? The hydrometer measures the amount of sugar initially, and then it measures the amount of sugar after fermentation. And the difference between those 2 measurements is the alcohol content. There's an equation where you put in the initial measurement, the final measurement, or there's an online calculator you can use. It's as simple or complicated as you want to make it. Now, if you don't want to do this step, that's fine. You can just take my word for it. But first, Sarah, I want 2 fun and interesting facts about you.
I once had a pet goat named Henry. Ooh, this one's fun and interesting for both of us. We were each other's first ever boyfriend and girl. I'm just kidding.
No, we're including that. Why would I not include it? She's telling the truth. It was sixth grade.
Sixth grade. It was really cute. And now we're still best friends.
We are. So now we want to add the honey. If you didn't add the honey, there would be no sugar in here. The yeast wouldn't produce any alcohol. So the honey is both for the flavor of honey and for the fermentable sugars. We're going to start with 1.5 pounds. All right, just pour it in. Alright, go ahead and thoroughly stir that up, Cyril. So using the hydrometer, we took a gravity reading, which came up to 1.05, which has an alcohol potential of 6.5%. We decided to just add another half pound of honey to reach a gravity 1.06, which means that if the fermentation works perfectly, we'll get 8% alcohol. Now what we want to do, it's not that complicated, even though it sounds complicated. We want to leave it open, but still have so I put a paper towel here so that oxygen can get in, and the preservatives in here can off-gas, can float away. That's exactly right. That's what the online recipe calls for, and if you YouTube search other videos on hard lemonade, that's what they'll tell you. I don't actually know if the science supports it, but we're going to take that extra step. Obviously, we have the paper towel on it so that bugs can't get in. So we're just going to loosely lay this on top and leave this for 24 hours. Just let it be. Okay. The second stage here is to make your starter. A starter is when you add your yeast to a small fermentation, not the main one, and then in a day you add that small fermentation into the main one. That's a really rough and ready explanation. We're gonna add some blueberries with some water I've added because they were frozen. I wanted to help them heat up. So we're gonna add about half of this, because this is a lot of blueberries, into this jar here, and then I'm gonna put the yeast and the nutrient into this, cover it up just like we did with paper towels, and leave it for 24 hours. That will ensure that by the time we pitch the yeast into the lemon juice, the fermentation is super active, it's already going, and that'll give us, once again, the best chance of success of fermenting lemon juice. Because like I said, lemon juice is really acidic, it's hard to ferment. So to mitigate against that problem, to overcome that difficulty, we start the fermentation in a much more yeast livable condition. Then you put it in. And then we'll get a nice blueberry touch to our hard lemonade. So that's pretty cool. Son of a bitch.
Well,
perfect. And then we'll go and muddle what we have left. That's okay. It's messy. You're doing great, sweetie. Oh yeah, we're just gonna use everything. We used about 3 cups of frozen blueberries. I just bought them at the store. They were already frozen. Let them thaw. And then put them in here. Now we're gonna add our yeast nutrient, that little smear of stuff. We're gonna add that into here right now.
No.
All right. Now, where did I get the idea to use blueberries as the starter? From Doing the Most. So thank you, Doing the Most. You've once again aided in my own fermentation production.
Shout out.
Yeah. So all I've done here is put a paper towel over the top with some twine. That is what is called an open fermentation. It's not closed or there's no airlock on it. It allows some oxygen to get in during that initial day of fermentation, which is nice, and the CO2 to come out. But of course, no bugs can get in. So you leave this for 24 hours. All right, it's been 24 hours. And so all we're gonna do is add this into this. Once we put this in here, we're gonna close it off with a bung and an airlock. The reason we're doing that is we no longer want this to be open to oxygen, which could negatively impact your fermentation. But you don't wanna just close it off as well, because all that CO2 that's produced by the yeast increases the pressure here. And if it's closed off, this will eventually explode. So you want a bung and an airlock, and you just push it right in, okay? Got some nice fruit here. And just close it off. And now it's good to go. So, what can you expect over the course of this fermentation? Well, number one, expect fermentation. Look for activity in the airlock as it bubbles up, and look for bubbles rising up the side of the fermenter.
Also, expect this to take 1.5 to 2 weeks.
The third is expect to come back here for part 2, okay? By that point, the fermentation will be over, we'll have all the alcohol, and I will show you everything you need to do to bottle this stuff up. To carbonate it as well. We're going to bottle carbonate. But that's all in video 2. I'm also going to be adding lavender to this so that it'll be really tasty. Well, thank you, Sarah, so much for joining me.
It's been a pleasure.
She will be back here for part 2 and maybe even other videos.
Ooh, special guest.
That's right. But in the meantime, go watch other videos and leave any questions in the comments if anything was unclear. But in the meantime, have a great day. Bye-bye.
I would like to add that the cup used in one of Miles's first videos was not purchased by Tiana, it was purchased by Sarah. And that has been something that's been needing clarification on this channel for a long time. So, thank you, Miles, for appreciating the present I got you.
I forgot about that.
It was never clarified.